number 5, we've got SCP-5000. The entity itself isn't all that scary, but it has many stories to tell. So very many. See, SCP-5000 is a non-functional mechanical suit known as an absolute exclusion harness. It was designed by the SCP Foundation, but not this SCP Foundation. Somehow it made its way into our dimension, or whatever the dimension the folks writing the entry originated in, containing the corpse of Pietro Wilson. Pietro is a Foundation employee and also very much so alive in the case of the Foundation that's writing this entry. So what happened here? Through some sneaky research and observation of files within the suit, Foundation folks were able to piece together what happened, and the story is not a happy one. In fact, it's quite terrifying, especially if you consider that it happened in a dimension not unlike our own. The logs begin with other Pietro explaining that he's probably the only one left. What does that mean? How did he escape with one of these crazy suits? Well, soon we learn exactly what's going on. The SCP Foundation has decided to exterminate the human race. Their objective has switched from secure, contain, protect to annihilate all humans. Immediately after making their once secret presence known, they went on the offensive, using all the anomalies at their disposal to make this task a little easier. And Pietro is essentially a wayward wanderer, bearing witness to all this madness. As he makes his way through the rapidly disintegrating world, his absolute exclusion harness makes it so that nobody will see him. The suit makes it impossible for any outside influence to observe him or the device. Super helpful when you're in a world being dominated by a ruthless organization, filled to the brim with deadly monsters. Like, get this. Pietro writes down all the different tales of the Foundation letting loose anomalies on the general public. They widely distribute photographs of 096 and then let it run free. They detonate nukes on 196's back, causing it to stir, which results in massive earthquakes and tsunamis. Mr. Deeds, the magic butler, is called upon to assassinate all sorts of folks. The flesh that hates is spread about in major city centers, and 682 is just straight up released. Not good. Just about every horrific thing they worked so hard to avoid is now just happening at large, all with the ultimate goal of wiping humans off the face of the earth. And Pietro, our faithful narrator, is just wandering the wastes, unable to be perceived, but seeing it all happen in real time. If that's not the scariest possible SCP story, then we might have reached a point where it could actually happen. Coming in at number 4, we've got the End of Death. There's a strange fixation on death throughout the SCP Wiki. I suppose humans exist to prolong their own lives and prevent our species from ever dying out. The ultimate fear in the back of people's minds is their own death and the inability to stop it, mostly anyways. So it makes sense that there are so many different SCPs directly linked to death. One extra secret SCP details the discovery that after dying we still retain some semblance of consciousness, forced to feel our bodies decompose in the darkness long after we're buried. Another one looks at how the linear, progressive passage of time is actually an anomaly and has caused billions of deaths. No stopping that. But what if death didn't happen? Or rather, couldn't? Welcome to the End of Death Hub. This is a whole separate canon within the SCP Wiki. Plenty of contributors have added to this particular horror story, one in which the entire observable world ceases to experience the effects of death. Immortality is forced upon all life without any other biological change. At first, this doesn't sound so bad, right? Death is scary. We don't want our loved ones to die. We don't want to die ourselves. The other side of that river Styx is unknown and therefore horrifying. So eternal life would be pretty sweet, no? Well, actually, it would be a total nightmare. Death is essential for life to continue. It's natural, it's needed. Without death, many things would be unable to change, unable to grow, and more. Overpopulation quickly becomes a major issue in this sprawling story as organizations and individuals alike seek out ways to keep the growth of everything under control. Also keep in mind that free from death does not mean free from pain and suffering. If you run out of food or experience major bodily trauma, you won't die and just be free from that suffering. Instead, you'll feel it more intensely than previously thought possible, and for longer too. That starvation feeling will never disappear. Those fatal injuries will plague you. Not fun. So if you really want a truly scary SCP story, check out the End of Death Hub. Pick through a few entries and see how awful life without death could truly be. Coming in at number 3, we've got SCP-4000. Listen carefully to this story, because if you mess any of the rules up, you could find yourself in a world of hurt. SCP-4000 is a very strange case. It's a forested land only accessible through weird ritual. Those who do complete the tasks required to travel here show up in a well and must walk down a path until they loop back to the start. During these walks, they will encounter all sorts of anomalous creatures. The creatures that live here come in all shapes and sizes and often undergo horrible mutations. Unfortunately, they're not huge fans of being mutated and can get pretty upset about it. Here's where the rules start to kick in. Do not call anything by a consistent name. Don't answer to a consistent name. Accept any gifts presented to you, but don't use or consume them. And if a ghost tells you that it's not a creature, listen to what it says. Follow these to a T and you might just make it out unscathed. But if you goof up and call something a consistent name, you might end up experiencing some really strange stuff. Creatures from SCP-4000 could appear to you in the real world as terrible hallucinations, or maybe not as hallucinations. Yikes. See, names are powerful things. They anchor a person or thing to their identity. But if we're to believe the stories of SCP-4000, the inhabitants of this world are Fae, banished here without any names or titles. If you give one of these things your name, they might just take it, and from there it can only go downhill. You could find yourself mutating, shifting, or changing without knowledge of why, just like a certain scholar, but we won't talk too much about him here. Coming at number 2, we've got SCP-1782. At first, this anomaly appears to be an abandoned apartment in Kiev that is constantly changing. Every few days, it instantaneously changes its appearance and contents. Often these things can be quite gross, quite macabre. One famous instance of this is when it was found to be full of birds and there was an old man inside feeding himself to them. The manifestations found in the apartment often point towards the toilet in the back. Further investigation shows that there's some weird stuff consistently back there. An odd dude with a TV camera showed some Foundation staff that there was a horrific cross between a human skeleton and a septic tank hidden back there. Even stranger, a fetus would appear in the toilet from time to time. It has been said that this fetus would have been a reality bender, but its mother didn't carry it to term. This angered it, and it now changes the observable reality within the apartment. However, it does so with a partially developed brain, leading to unexpected and often incomprehensible results. Nobody's been inside the apartment since, with the Foundation preferring to explore it using drones. Even then, the tales people tell of this apartment are so hard to parse, who knows what's really going on in there. And finally, at number 1, we've got SCP-5999. This is an absolute gem of a story. In fact, there are many stories threaded throughout. There's the story of the cursed video game, Prodigy Priest King, which sends all who play it into an obsessive quasi-religious furor. Nobody survives playing the game, although the results are always a little different. There are the anomalous remains of a Miss Jacqueline Holcroft that seem to haunt all those who encounter them through auditory and visual hallucinations. Those who read far enough might find loose teeth in their drawers or corpses in places they shouldn't be. There's a town in Kansas chock full of ghastly apparitions and MTF-destroying ghouls. People fall through the earth and later reappear to torment their kin. So many things happen throughout the many 5999 entries, all hidden behind major security clearance barriers, but if you make it through, blowing out the candles one by one, you might find that the chains are weakening. This means you're closer to the whole story, but also much closer to danger. Do you dare read the whole thing, or will you just take my word that it's scary and live your life without that? Some chilling stories for these chilly nights. What could be better, right? Well, the way some of these tales end, I'm sure you'd rather they didn't exist in the first place, but hey.
Number 5, Wentworth Woodhouse. Back in December of 2017, a group of investigators known as Soul Reaper Paranormal headed out to Rotherham, South Yorkshire to Wentworth Woodhouse, a 17th century private estate that is notorious as a paranormal hotspot. The paranormal investigation team did an entire sweep of the 23,000 square yard building, but within just 2 minutes of being there, they caught this perplexing footage. Allegedly, the team described the apparition as being the same height as a child, and after standing in direct view of the cameraman, appeared to float through the wall as if trying to lead the team in a certain direction. The team described the spirit as being awash with residual energy, which is interesting because the majority of these apparitions can be explained away as a lens flare or a flicker of light, but in this case, the shape still holds its form even though when the footage is inverted. Interesting, right? Well, what do you guys think? Next up at number 4, sounds from the basement. Admittedly, this is an audio video, so I'll give you fair credit for feeling a little cheated. However, the content of this minute-long YouTube video is so strangely disturbing that I just had to make this list. Published over a decade ago in 2007, YouTuber Don Garvey responded to a homeowner that had regularly heard strange, unsettling noises coming from their basement, and so, along with a paranormal investigation team, set up some rudimentary audio recording equipment in the basement to see what was going on. After 3 days of capturing no compelling explanation, on the fourth night, just after 3 AM, they realized that there was something down there making an otherwise otherworldly racket. Now, Don has defended this footage for over a decade, regularly explaining that the footage was completely unedited other than being amplified, and maintaining that he still has no explanation for the ghostly sound. Either he's got one hell of a poker face, or he really did capture the wailing of a disturbed spirit. Coming in at number 3, Dreamwater Lounge. And we're going back to England again because we all know that's where the spookiest stuff happens, right? In 2015, some pretty unnerving CCTV footage was captured at the Dreamwater Lounge wine bar in Stockton Heath, Cheshire, following decades of reports from staff of strange happenings on the property who regularly complained of an unsettling feeling throughout. Well, at 1 minute 15, the CCTV camera captures what appears to be an incredibly clear silhouette of a figure moving throughout the corridor before disappearing and the camera shaking back to normality. Well, horror fans, I've got to be honest with you, the reason that I chose this clip for our number 3 spot, right in the middle, is because, well, it's a fake. A very good fake, but still an obviously doctored piece with some very clear tampered editing to propagate a paranormal story. Remember, it's important to be vigilant when facing the unexplainable. At 37 seconds when the lights cut, it appears to rain on the camera. However, the streak marks seem to take away the hard-coded date and timestamp, which just doesn't happen. It's not on the camera lens in any way, unless the spirit possesses the power to cause digital precipitation, which, who knows? Well, we will leave the link to this video in the info box so you can check it out for yourself and let us know your thoughts in the comment box down below. Next up at number 2, Gettysburg Ghosts.
Right there. See? Look.
There's nobody there.
Which, compared to our previous point, is definitely a video that myself, as well as the majority of the internet, find incredibly difficult to explain away because it's just so weird, and the perfect example of a difficult to explain ghost video. This is heralded by many as the most genuine paranormal footage ever captured, and has held that title ever since it was filmed way back when, in November of 2001. Husband and wife duo Delia and Tim Underwood were visiting the triangular field at Gettysburg on a day trip with their grandchildren, when after filming the site they noticed something appear along the tree line. Shapes, figures, almost too clear to be true figures of what appeared to be American Civil War soldiers moving in formation. Now, I'm going to level with you guys, I've tried to look as critically as possible at this footage and I'm still stumped. The video quality is low at best, which would make any post editing pretty obvious. There's none of that. Other than several very unlikely lens flares, I don't have an explanation. Check it out for yourselves and let us know your thoughts in the comment box down below. And finally, at our number 1 spot, Thing in the Hallway. Now, it's important to remember that this piece of footage was made for entertainment, but still, I think the possibility of it being tampered with is incredibly low, and nevertheless, it doesn't make it any less terrifyingly weird. Ghost Stalkers, a short-lived paranormal documentary series from veteran investigator John E.L. Tenney, featured an episode where himself and his assistant spent the night alone in violently haunted locations. It's important to note that this episode was the only television show to ever capture a full-body apparition on camera, and that's kind of a big deal. The figure that has now become known as the Tall Man was filmed inside the Old Taylor Memorial Hospital in Hawkinsville, Georgia, a notorious hotspot for the paranormal, and well, I'm pretty sure the show's creators couldn't believe their eyes after capturing one of the most chilling pieces of paranormal evidence ever. Again, we'll leave the link in the info box down below so you can check it out in full. Yeah, that's some pretty spooky stuff.
Coming in at number 5, the Corwin Witch House. The Jonathan Corwin House in Salem, or simply known better as the Witch House, was the home of Judge Jonathan Corwin, 1640 to 1718, a prominent figure in the horrors that happened there, and is actually the only structure you can visit in Salem today that has direct ties to the Salem witch trials of 1692. Well, that might not be the case because we got a couple of those coming up. Trust me, this place is riddled with ties to those witches. Corwin bought the house in 1675 and lived there for more than 40 years. The Witch House is a 350-year-old thick building with black painted timber 2.5 stories tall, built to last, massive, and looming. Located at 310 Essex Street in the historic district of Salem, the house stands in testimony to the witch trials, and it's believed that the witch house was used by Jonathan Corwin and others to actually interrogate those accused of witchcraft. The witch house remained with the Corwins, of course, until the mid-1800s, yet there wasn't many family around to liven it up. The Corwin curse seems like a weird one, since all the Corwin's kids, 5 children, all perished young from separate complications within the house. And this is where it gets really weird. Not only is the place haunted to hell and back with specters seen in the attic upstairs and loud voices, arguments heard in the empty house at night, 8 Corwin lives were lost to premature death in that house. All Corwins. Yeah, I'd say that makes for a pretty cursed home, alright? A family curse. Number 4, Proctors Ledge. There are over 1,000 documents from Salem witch trials, yet none of the accounts actually specify where the hangings took place. For many years it was believed that the 19 people who were executed in Salem were hanged at the summit of Gallows Hill, on the edge of town to the west, where the town would meet for large gatherings. Seems like after some homework, the hill alone would be too hard to climb, not an ideal spot to hear or see the live trials, and was too thick and heavily wooded. Maps of 1700 Salem show Gallows Hill marked on the map, but no actual marker for the execution site. I feel like a detective all of a sudden. A team of researchers began to reconsider all of the evidence around 2010, eras of homework collected over the years, and eventually concluded that the real execution spot was Proctors Ledge. Boom, baby! This was confirmed in 2016. Part of the evidence included 1692 eyewitnesses' accounts who wrote in journals that they were able to see the hangings from their homes to actually remains being dug up and found now. Now I know what you're thinking, it's named after John Proctor. No, it's not. However, odd timing, as he was one of the witches accused of witchcraft along with 3 of his other mistresses. Locals say that the lady in white visits Proctor's Ledge. Some visitors claim to have caught the sight of her, though others catch only her disembodied voice. Are these the phantoms of the unsettled spirits tied to the grounds where they were hanged for eternity? Who knows? Number 3, Charter Street Burial Grounds. The Charter Street Burial Grounds started in 1637, also known as Old Burying Point or the Charter Street Cemetery, is the oldest cemetery in Salem. Many early and famous Salem residents are buried here, such as John Hawthorne, a judge in the Salem witch trials of 1692. Hawthorne, whose father had been a Salem magistrate, was born in 1641 and had 6 children. Hawthorne experienced several deaths in his family, including those of all his 3 brothers. Hawthorne died in 1717 at the age of 76, never apologizing for the role in the Salem witch trials. His headstone is surrounded by granite rectangles to help preserve what is left of the original stone. Being one of the oldest cemeteries and the sickening things that happen there, ghosts and spirits are often seen around the gravesite. There have been many strange occurrences here. Witch stuff aside, about 400 years of ghostly encounters have happened at the Old Burying Point Cemetery. Over the years, people have successfully captured EVP of voices from beyond the grave at the site. If you can hear me, say something. Stop yelling. Oh, sorry. Photographs of mysterious shadows, orbs, white mist, and even full apparitions are seen here. One of these apparitions is believed to be Mary Bright Corey, who died 1684. She was the second wife of Giles Corey, who later became an unfortunate victim of the witch trials himself. Another ghost seen is the powdered blue dress lady, whilst holding a picnic basket in one hand and sometimes accompanied by a young boy. Normally, once the cameras come out, the lady in white transitions into numerous bright orbs or vanishes altogether. Maybe the ghost woman is the same Mary Corey, forever watching over Judge Hawthorne's grave. Number 2, Gallows Hill. Okay, so we were just talking about what happened to some of the accused during these hysterical trials and all the historical places that saw such violence. One of the most interesting witches tried of that was Giles Corey. Tried as a witch but never hanged. Actually, the old man known as Giles Corey was pressed to death with the judge's orders of him being a strong and stubborn old man and would not for the life of him indulge in the nonsense he was being accused for. He never admitted that he was a witch. even throughout his torture. They laid him down and put a board on his back and proceeded to stone him to death, piling up stones on the board, resulting in crushing and eventually perishing underneath it. Only took about 4 days. Giles Corey apparently repeatedly yelled "more weight," further cementing his plea of not guilty to everyone watching at Gallows Hill. With his last breath, Giles apparently cursed the town of Salem, and this area is now an unearthly hotspot for paranormal activity. The Gallows Hill that most people are aware of is nothing but a baseball diamond, but underneath that baseball diamond, bone fragments and coffins have been found. Interesting, because no witches were ever buried in coffins. Maybe vampires? Giles died from his inflicted torture on September 19th, 1692, just after the 8th anniversary of his wife Mary's passing. Strange sounds emerge from the area at night, including loud knockings, thumpings that wake up neighbors from their bed, and, of course, the full-bodied apparitions said to walk the grounds yelling in the middle of the night. There have been full-bodied apparitions spotted within the woods, with disembodied voices shrieking in the middle of the night. The disturbingly loud voices yelled throughout the area have had some locals scratching their heads. Is this the ghost of Giles himself, speaking his curse upon the town for all to hear? Shh! Trying to sleep! And coming in at number 1, House of Seven Gables. Locals say the Turner Ingersoll Mansion, or also known as famously the House of Seven Gables, is the most haunted spot in Salem. How many haunted spots are there? Ghosts are just like really competitive. Now a prominent museum, protected in its original form, used for plays and reenactments by the locals, the original structure was simple in nature, with only 2.5 rooms and just under 3 stories tall. By the time of John Turner's death, the prominent merchant, sea captain, and owner of the house, he was one of the most wealthy men in the entirety of Massachusetts. Turner and Ingersoll's House of the Seven Gables is a ghostly reminder of the tormented souls both trying and being tried at the time of the hangings. But the Turner Ingersoll is a reminder for more than just lost shipping fortunes and curses, as it's also a homely reminder of Judge Hawthorne himself and the guilt he inflicted on that town. As records show, Hawthorne may have feigned sympathy for the accused witches, but he never regretted his involvement in their trials or executions. And he certainly never expressed any remorse during the trials themselves for sending the accused to their death. Following the witch hysteria of the late 1600s, the Hawthorne family lost most of their wealth, no doubt influenced by the families of the accused witches who sought out justice for their dead loved ones. Acting now is only a museum of historic place. Each year, the museum hosts a series of theatrical plays, all of which surrounding the Salem witch trials. Such plays titled as Legacy of the Hanging, Judge Hawthorne, and Spirits of the Gables. But some of the actors aren't, well, very alive. As for the ghosts outside of the theatrical performances, well, everybody's got their own opinions on that, but tour guides and employees tend to avoid the attic, where some people have complained about being choked by ghostly figures. Local lore has many different stories to tell, and so do many of the visitors who enter Salem's most haunted house. Others report seeing a phantom boy who enjoys playing in the attic. Throughout the day, his giggles and laughs can be heard. Always giggling kids, eh? They're like the scariest ghosts.
List is the security cam. A man recently bought a security camera to watch his home, and when he was reviewing the tape, found a very interesting sound. It doesn't sound like anything natural or something that would appear in his home. He's had a few different people listen to the sound, and they all seem to hear something different. What do you guys hear? So there is definitely something there, but I'm gonna be honest guys, I can't really tell what it is that it says. I checked the comments of the video where he posted it, and a lot of people think that it said innocent. I hear that, but it also doesn't quite fit, you know what I mean? Let me know in the comments what you guys hear, and if you think this is even English. It's possible that this could be a completely different language and we're just fooling ourselves entirely. Number 4 on this list is tea. So, I'm gonna be honest guys, this one isn't nearly as scary as some of the other ones on this list, but even still, I'm gonna include it because it truly is very strange. So the account that posted this is all about cats and animals. They're gonna be showing us how much food to dish out when something very strange happens.
A tablespoon?
Yeah, this is half of a tablespoon. Tablespoon? Tablespoon?
So for some reason, this EVP really wants some tea. Maybe this is the ghost of some Victorian era person who just really misses having their afternoon tea and wants to make it known that they want some. It's definitely clear that a noise is there, like that can't possibly be debated, but what the heck made that noise and why are they saying tea? Very strange to say the least there. Number 3 on this list is the ancient Egyptian. Many years ago, back in 2013, a YouTube account called Massage ASMR posted a video entitled Ghost EVP Captured in Egypt on Camera. This video is pretty unlike the usual content this guy posts, but apparently it was actually sent in by his friends and was simply too good for him not to put on the internet and see if anyone had any answers. Apparently the footage was taken at the temple of Hatshepsut, Luxor, Egypt in October 2012. There was also no editing to this footage at all. It was taken directly from the SD card. Let's roll the clip now and see if you guys can hear the EVP.
Probably guys over there, I know.
So it was very quick, but it was definitely there. A sound that came totally out of left field and doesn't make any sense for the surroundings. I mean, we hear a bunch of different tourists and a tour guide, and then very distinctly the sound of a ghost for roughly 1.5 seconds, and well, then it's gone. Now, it's believed that this ghost, or, well, whatever spirit was trying to communicate, was speaking ancient Egyptian. I don't know how these people managed to figure that out, but I guess considering we're in an ancient Egyptian temple, that would obviously make a lot of sense. Comment down below, what do you think about this EVP and what could it mean? Was this a warning, or maybe it was welcoming them? Pretty tough to say. Number 2 on this list is the Whisper. This next entry was captured by a couple who was vlogging on their vacation. This footage was captured at Teotihuacan. If you don't know what that is, then Google says Teotihuacan is a vast Mexican archaeological complex northeast of Mexico City. Running down the middle of the site, which was once a flourishing pre-Columbian city, is the Avenue of the Dead. It links the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Pyramid of the Sun, the latter two with panoramic views from their summits. Artifacts in the Museum of Teotihuacan culture on site include pottery and bones. Basically, this place is a very ancient site that has been linked to a lot of important rituals. The perfect place for an EVP to happen. Let's roll the clip and see what you guys think.
Comes from Brazil, over 3,000 miles away, and it's an energy conductor, but it
So she seems to think that it's whispering to them in Spanish or some other ancient language. I personally heard a lot more breathing than any whispering, but that's just me. Maybe this couple happened to be filming right at the perfect time and some ancient spirit was just passing on by. Or maybe she's right and it was actually trying to speak to them. It's too bad that these EVPs usually speak in languages that we don't understand, because it would be pretty nice to know what they're actually saying. And finally, number 1 on this list is Dracula's Castle. Corvin Castle in Transylvania is known to most people as Dracula's Castle. If Dracula was to be real, then this would definitely be the place that he'd live. Tourists travel far and wide to visit this place and see for themselves. Many people believe that the place itself is haunted, and some camera footage where they caught an EVP might prove just that. Let's roll the clip so you guys can see what I mean. I assume that footage is dark because they left the camera there for a long time, and this probably would have been at nighttime. It's really fast, but that definitely didn't sound like the wind to me. That was very clearly something. Now, I don't know exactly what that something was, but I would wager a bet that some type of spirit played a role in producing it. Was that spirit Dracula? Maybe. Could that have been the spirit of somebody who died here? Well, that's also possible. We may never know for sure, but I think it's pretty clear that this castle is how the locals describe it. Very haunted.